Hello again, I am Blunty and this is the Samsung Galaxy camera. Like the Nikon S800C before it, it's a compact camera that has had its guts replaced with those of an Android handset. In this case, those droid-burning guts are pretty much the same as what you'll find inside the Samsung Galaxy S3, with the exception, of course, of the image sensor and that big lens arrangement sitting on the face of it. And because it is based on such a common and well-known Android handset, I won't bother digging into that side of things much. Suffice to say, by today's standards, it's a decent Android experience that will be absolutely adequate for 98% of users out there. So, aside from a moment to comment on the quite lovely screen, which is indeed lovely, unless you're trying to use it outdoors in the bright sun where it instantly becomes a squint fest, let's concentrate on the camera side of this interesting hybrid. Now, instead of the minuscule sensor and fixed wide-angle lens you find in normal Android handsets, here you get a 21 times zoom lens with a minimum aperture starting at f2.8 and winding out to f5.9 at the long end, all slapped over the same sensor you'll find in most low and middle-end compact cameras. Other compact camera accoutrements that will set it apart from regular Android handsets are the pop-up flash. Please note that is a proper flash, not the little LED light you get on the back of normal Android handsets, and a camera-like battery door to make it easy to switch out the battery beside it, and a very handy standard Q20 tripod mount. Aside from the lack of any physical buttons and controls on the backside, which instead is dominated by the big 4.8-inch 720p screen, the thing handles as you may expect any point-and-shoot camera to handle. A shallow but relatively comfortable grip provides a familiar hold, but there's a distinct lack of somewhere decent to put your thumb, so the ergonomics aren't nearly as comfortable as a more standard camera of similar size. The camera performance itself is pretty decent. It takes a while to get used to the odd mix of Android and compact camera handling it presents, but in decently skilled hands it can actually turn out quite pleasant results. That zoom lens is not actually very sharp, especially at the long end, but for posting stuff online where the viewer rarely gets to see images at full resolution anyway, it gets the job done just fine. And the huge reach it provides does give you a significant advantage over the fixed focus lenses on normal Android stuff, of course. And pleasantly, the full zoom range is accessible in video mode too, where the optical stabilization and autofocus handle themselves quite nicely. It sucks in a total of 16 megapixels in its stills mode, which can actually cause problems with some Android editing apps, as most of them were never designed to accommodate image files that large. And in fact, Snapseed, my editor of choice on mobile, actually forces you to scale down the image and throw away a large chunk of that resolution if you want to be able to load the image to start editing it. Not exactly ideal. The colour, contrast and tonal range are all within expectations of a decent compact camera, but if you catch some flare from the sun, your image will quickly wash out and look rather foggy, which took me by surprise because as flare characteristics go, this is fairly unusual behaviour. You can even get quite a pleasant bokeh in the outer focus areas if you're mindful of your setup. I was never really blown away by anything the Galaxy did in its camera mode, but again, it's leagues ahead of what you'll get from any other Android handset out there, except for perhaps the Nikon S800C, which is Nikon's Android camera I mentioned in the beginning. It has better image quality and a better lens, but has a much worse Android experience and much less manual controllability. Speaking of which, the manual control offered up here was a very pleasant surprise, alongside a suite of various automatic modes you might expect, including a quite serviceable macro mode, by the way. There is a so-called expert mode. The interface for it is clumsy, it is slow, and it is needlessly graphical, but it does give over all the control a serious and educated shooter will want. And video mode is what I'll call adequate. Again, it's rather clumsy at times, and it always felt mildly frustrating to me if I'm honest, but when things did fall into place as I wanted them to, the result was a fairly acceptable 1080p video. The compression is a bit aggressive, which will often obliterate fine detail in a macro blocky mess in high motion scenes, and motion absolutely has that harsh video-y look to it rather than the more desirable naturalistic cinematic look, but in most cases you'll get quite a pleasant image which falls squarely into the good enough territory for sharing clips or small YouTube projects and the like. If you drop away from 1080p, you even get a couple of high frame rate options. 720 at 60p for some half-speed slow motion, or an awkward 768 by 512 resolution for 120 frames per second for some blocky but cool-looking quarter-speed slow-mo, which, thanks to the old-school 4:3 aspect ratio, non-standard resolution and comparatively soft image, will be of limited practical use, but there's no denying it's a cool toy. So, as a camera, judged purely on its own merits as a compact point-and-shoot, and the end results I was able to achieve, I actually quite liked the Samsung Galaxy camera, and I managed to squeeze out some very nice shots with it, even if I do say so myself. But the inclusion of the same slim battery that lived in the Samsung Galaxy S2 phone cripples it. It's desperately anemic by today's standards. The battery life is pathetic. If you decide to own one of these cameras, you will, I say again, you will be spending money on a spare battery or two, which you will then have to worry about keeping with you and making sure they're charged up and ready. Because when you're actually using this thing as a camera, its purpose in life, the stupid thing struggles to last 3 hours. To put that in another perspective, the average camera these days will get about 350 shots per battery charge. The Galaxy camera will very likely be completely dead before you get past 200. And that's without burning processor power by editing or uploading them or doing anything else like playing with Twitter or checking your email and some web surfing, stuff you would want to do on an Android-based device. So, it's not much good if you're a photographer who likes to go on dedicated photo walks. The thing's gonna die before you get home. And it's certainly next to useless for travellers. So who is this for? Well, I'm not entirely sure. Samsung market this thing as ideal for those who love to share their life photographically online. The Instagram, Facebook addicted attention whore type, constantly sharing pictures of their lunch and their outfits and lazy snaps of whatever view happens to be in front of them where they're sitting on their ass filling their face with their soy latte decafs. And on the face of it, with all that onboard Android goodness, it seems smart. You shoot, edit, share, all on one device, no worries. It's an awesome concept, right? But if you try and actually use this thing as your main communications device, the stupid thing is dead before the taste of lunch is washed from your mouth. You'd think in a device that by its nature is going to be larger than any other Android handset with this screen size, they'd have used some of that extra bulk to cram in a larger battery. It's completely idiotic that Samsung considered this an acceptable battery life for a camera. So what is the point of this then? The pathetically tiny battery means it can't get through a whole day. So that means you can't make it your main device and replace your Android phone or iPhone in any practical sense. So that means you're going to have to carry your phone and a camera anyway. So why would you choose the Galaxy to be that extra camera you have to carry around with you? It's not even close to being the best choice in compact cameras based on its middling performance, average lens quality and small sensor. A smart mobile photographer will instead team up a good compact camera with either built-in Wi-Fi, which is becoming more common these days, or put in a Wi-Fi enabled SD card so that they can share their shots to their main phone and edit and share that way. It's only slightly more cumbersome than doing it all on the Galaxy camera. You get better end results and a better battery life from your camera. And it's something that I myself have been doing for a couple of years now, so I know for a fact it works wonderfully. Final word. The Samsung Galaxy camera is decent, and, much like Nikon's attempt, it's an exciting first stab, and it's absolutely where more and more compact cameras will be headed. It's the way of the future, there's very little doubt about that. But there is a lot of work to be done before this type of thing truly becomes the best option for on-the-go, instant shoot and share photo blogger lifestyle type stuff. I will be hanging on to mine, and I will take it shooting with me from time to time, and I do happen to already have a spare battery for it from my old Samsung Galaxy S2 phone. But it's not going to become the daily snapper companion that Samsung hoped to make it. It's just not ready to be that. Maybe the next version will be. Maybe. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.